Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 371 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to continue to expand the factory to support our rocket silo construction, as well as producing more power and doing more research, getting us closer to the end of the game. Enjoy! Almost done with stage 2 here. I'm kind of worried about the other 4 stages here, but we will see. Well, as long as it doesn't require so much concrete, we could do this a lot faster. So now we have 4 of the 5 of these things on the bus. The satellite will probably just be made in the mall, so we won't have to worry about that because it's only one machine. But we do need the rocket engines, and they have been set up already, so all we need to do is put them down somewhere. It needs some gears, and they are right here. Wow. So we have a new record of power production here. That's quite incredible, and it looks like it's powering up. Oh, it dropped back down. But that was about 18 gigawatts for a little while there, because thorium and uranium was running at the same time. And that makes sense because thorium is about 10 gigawatts and uranium is about 8, so that number makes sense. And our labs continue to be placed, and now we're up to 6.3 gigawatts for just research. Let's see here, we already calculated the gear wheels, but we really don't need to worry about that. We just need to put a bunch of machines in line here and pull in the gears and the tungsten. Doesn't really need much of either. So it'll be something like that. Let's put it in here. Give it 2 spaces. And at this point we're tossing substations everywhere. And there's what we need for the rocket engines. And they're being made. Pretty straightforward. Well, with that, we now have every single item that we need to build the rocket with. So that's pretty cool. We just need these silos to be ready. But while that's going, there are some other elements. We actually need to make the satellite. And we need to make them so slowly, where it's not really going to be much of an issue to just have one machine on them all here. So we might as well get it set up. Most of these things are already going to be available, but the one thing we'll want to direct insert is the RTGs. So let's do that as well. And we don't want to make too many of these because they are kind of expensive and we don't really need them that fast. So how about we make 10 of each. And now let's toss them in the mall. Like right here. Aluminum, lead, and plutonium could all be relatively easily delivered here. The thing that's a little weird is the sodium cobaltate, which only goes into this. And it is a little interesting. So let's calculate that out. Oh, that research was completed. So we've got it on here. It's just one machine. It does have oxygen and carbon dioxide, so we probably want to place it somewhere where sodium carbonate and cobalt oxide are nearby. But now we are in the long slog of the faster than light theories, and it looks like all of our labs are placed. So that's great, you know, using a measly 6.8 gigawatts. But now they're only consuming the red science pack. So at some point we're going to need to crank that up, but we should probably wait on that until we're working on the tier 3 of these rocket silos. And it's very close to being done on this one, so at least we can see what the next requirement would be. And there we go. It switched back to a drill. Uh-oh. So it's going to create more stone, more sand, more crushed stone, more slag, and now a bunch of random ores. I have a feeling this is a test to see how good are your robot logistics. Is all this ore going to have somewhere to go? Well, that's nice. At least this stage will be fast, and hopefully they're picking up the ore and taking it places. Guess we'll find out. If anything makes it to the junk warehouse, which it hasn't. But it needs even more inserters. Since we already have a blueprint of this and it seems to be working fine, I'll just leave them here and let them get clogged up very quickly, because this stage is a lot faster than those other ones. So the sodium cobaltate probably makes sense to do it somewhere around here where the sodium carbonate is being stored. And it's right there. And it would also need the cobalt oxide. And if we follow this, we'll probably get to it, because it goes pretty far down. There we go. It passes directly by where we're storing the cobalt oxide. And the pipes are here too. And since we have drone stuff in this area, why not do it by drone? But since we only need one machine, we probably could just do direct insertion and call it a day. How about under 2,000? So there's a nice little buffer. And we just pipe that in. So now it's going. Is all this stuff getting picked up? I think it is. It seems to be being removed and placed wherever it needs to. I mean, it's really not that much ore when you look at it, at least compared to... It creates 100 sand a second, but only 2 of the other ores, so I think we're good. They all seem to be going to where they need to. Okay, let's do another drone pickup point. And probably just the one drone, since we need so little of it. Could certainly put in more. Well, let's get all these requests going. Plutonium is not on the way. And turning this into a buffer warehouse will solve our problem, because we want all of our plutonium in the factory to be right at this point, except for the stuff that we don't want to be here. Let's set it to like 50,000. It really shouldn't be grabbing anything, but 14 plutonium is on the way here. Alright, a lot of these are starting to switch over to mining. Hey, that one finished up. Awesome. Well, we need more concrete now. It's going to be concrete Mageddon for a long time. It's cool how the graphic changes every time. Now it doesn't need the water, and it already has the other 2 things, so it's kind of nice that it is using the same requests, so there's less here to change. So now we're going to need iron pipes, probably just like 1,000 of them, and some pipe to grounds. And it actually needs 100 of them, which is actually kind of crazy. So we'll say 500. That's nuts, though. Maybe more like 100. We're probably not even making them, to be honest. So we'll put all these requests in here, and we can leave it like it is, because this is still copyable. Thank goodness for robots, right? Because we need so much pipe, we probably should just make it right here. It'll be kind of annoying and also kind of temporary, but the rate is so incredibly high that I think we have to. So this is kind of weird. But let's do an iron pipe setup. Compute by factory, we just want 1. And it's only going to put out 14 pipes a second, which is not much. But if we crank these up with speed modules, and then put a speed module in here, we can basically maximize it. And it's going to require all of the iron plates. That's really crazy. Wow, that's the entire bus's output of sheet coils. Amazing. Well, this isn't going to be a small setup, but productivity modules will help. I guess we'll just do it right here. That's so many plates. Well, I kind of want to do some kind of direct insertion, because whenever you have crazy numbers, that's when the direct insertion comes in to try to minimize it. We're just trying to pump out the undergrounds here. And we also actually need to pump out the regular pipes too. So we need to have some provisions for that. And this machine's going to be running much slower than the other side. But we can also do the exact same thing. Dropping the iron in. And then we have something like this. And we needed approximately 10 of them. And get a substation in there. And then all we need to do is put 2 nice clean belts of iron in here. Man, I could barely remember the last time we even used iron for anything. Probably should have did some research on this mod for the rocket silo construction and actually seen what the resources were that went into it, so maybe I would have had a better idea of what I was getting into. Not that I regret it or anything. It's just, it's nice to know what you're getting into before you jump into something. So doing it after the fact is not ideal. The drilling stage is definitely a lot faster. By the way, the cobaltate made it. So that means that everything is in here for the RTGs. And there it goes. It's quite fast. We'll let that run for a few minutes, but we are ready to test our massive pipe maker. Of course, once these silos are built, we won't need this anymore. But I don't think anything else is going to go here anyway, so... Well, it's making pipes. And they are being distributed. Wow, back up to 850,000 sand again. We're about at the point where we need even more of these. Because they're all filled with sand. Something about how it's coarse and it's rough and it gets everywhere. It really feels like that right now. Once all these machines catch up on their undergrounds, then they'll start collecting regular pipes again. I really hope 20 silos is enough. Because it's going to be a lot of work to make more of them. Which means that if we're waiting around for anything, we should probably just preemptively build more silos. Because it's actually going to take a little while to make them. But we've collected a few RTGs. Which means we have everything to start making a few satellites. So let's let that one inserter work very hard to fill up on all these. Although we still need to deliver the rocket fuel and the control units. So there's the rocket fuel and the control units. Wow, we're using every single logistics robot we have right now. It's building up its control units, so there we go. We made a satellite. It's kind of an afterthought. It's just so fast. You have 5-second crafting time. That seems a little wrong, but that's what it takes to make a satellite. It's quite quick and seems to be working fine for what we would need out of it. And the pipes. But it's all working. So I kind of want to make sure that we're making more robots because it seems like we would need more. And we are. It's just they are so busy right now. Just the amount of sand and stone and everything is just crazy. So once all this is done, they will be able to relax a little bit. So these silos have completed their second digging stage and even more warehouses because now we have 1.3 million sand. I think going through that is going to take a very long time. And the other thing we can use sand on is just making glass. It's not the most efficient use of sand, but at this point we just want to make it go away. We just want to go through this as quickly as possible. And we'll connect it here and just say the input is on the right. Requesting sand. A lot of it. Of course, we're not actually making glass requests right now because researching just red packs for science does not take that much effort. It certainly doesn't require any glass. We're actually maximizing all of our labs here because if we select everything, it's about 7 per second, and the red science can actually do about double that. So it might seem like we need twice as many labs again. If you look at the requirement, it's 1 pack every 60 seconds. Whereas these ones are 2 packs every 60 seconds. And that's pretty much how it goes except for certain packs. So, although this research will go a little slower, if we build all those labs, they'll just basically go unused until we improve the output of our research. Of course, we need these in there as well. Come on, bring the sand. There we go. Well, from what we can see, it seems fast. There's a lot of it. The resources are pretty intense for all of these. But we're making it. We're slowly putting in all the necessary things. So progress is continuing on these. Well, power output has calmed down a bit. We are using about 7 gigawatts on our labs because they use the same amount of power no matter how many science packs they're working on. But the rest of the science bus calmed down. So our power requirements have dipped. Although the labs are sized properly for the rest of these researches, we're probably going to be dramatically expanding our output here. So I think we're going to need a lot more labs than this. So we should probably basically double it up again. And it looks like, with the way that it is set up, we can actually copy this entire thing. Wow. Things are getting pretty nuts here. It would be nice to leave that coal patch available just in case it's needed. So if we put this here, we might be able to get one more string of labs in here. So let's do it. It took a good second for the computer to get those placed. So there we go. It looks like the snake will now continue. I was never thinking we were going to run out of space for labs, but it's getting to that point. Well, there's more space out here to keep the snake going, and then up there, it will go as long as it needs to. Well, it seems like most of these setups now are waiting on pipes. So you know what that means? More pipes. Is pollution continuing to be bad? Oh yes, we are making an immense amount of pollution, but this is relatively temporary. I'm thinking that building these rocket silos is actually taking more resources than building the rocket itself, which I suppose makes sense from a balance perspective because you build many rockets but you only build one silo, and it's cool that every stage this changes, so now we can see that there is definitely a hole with metal in there. All those pipes are going towards something. What is the actual output of all of this? Well, it's going to need basically a maxed out belt. At least on this side. We are getting to that point now where we need every last little bit of performance that the factory has. This is where all of our planning up until this point comes into play, because now our factory is the correct size for all of this, and we don't have to do huge major changes to anything. We just have to go through and hit the weak stuff. And upgrading bus lanes like this is pretty easy to do. And thank goodness we have coils, because by updating this, it basically means we're going to get about 240 plates a second out of this one line. Well, our glass setup is in full force now because a train came through, and it's certainly doing a good job. So that will help in getting rid of all of that sand. That is a lot of pipes. It's kind of crazy. Something tells me the last stage is going to require more of those pipes and more concrete, because it seems like each stage adds on to each other. So there's probably going to be 2 more resources at least that goes into the last one. After, of course, creating an entire planet's worth of extra sand. This is certainly a test of your logistics. My goodness, like, your factory has to be ready when you start this process. Well, our bus is designed around titanium plates, but that seems to be the thing that we're short on. So how about, instead of rebuilding the entire bus, we'll just use an extra slot for coils and then figure out what we want to do later, because we still have them available here. So instead of putting plates on the bus, let's just take the coils down here. After all, we do have all of these slots, so let's leverage them. So there we go, that's going. It'll more or less use up that whole belt and make 380 plates a second. I hope that's enough. Well, we've got another stage going here. Stage 5. No drilling this time, so perhaps the final 2 stages are construction stages. Now, we need to get lots and lots of wires in here. Luckily, wires are relatively easy to make. It's using stuff you don't normally use in such huge quantities. Like, when was the last time that you needed hundreds and hundreds of red and green wire? They are being delivered because, of course, they're being delivered to our inventory, and it's interesting, it requires copper wire coils, not them in wire form. I mean, I'm fine with that. It's just kind of weird, because then gold wire comes in gold wire and not coil form. Oh, I guess we can hover over this to find out the numbers. Well, they're crazy, unfortunately. So if we do all of that, that's going to be a lot of wire. Let's do the same thing, but this time doing the green wire. Well, that's continuing now. We're just going to have to let it take its course. We've supplied everything that it needs. So what's the next weakest thing in the factory? Well, it's probably our research. Of course, we actually need to build more labs first, because as long as we have not maxed out our current production, expanding it won't really help. It's just we need these centrifuges, and they're quite difficult to build. Specifically, they require lots of concrete, which we are continuing to use on our silos. But robots got here, my goodness. Almost done here, so we can see what the final stage is. Meanwhile, I've been taking the opportunity to upgrade the armor a little bit more, so our robot zone's a lot wider, way more charge ports, and of course, a lot more robots. Technically we can hold 160, but since they stack in units of 50, we'll just do 3 stacks of them, and it looks like we're going to have to pick them up manually. We've been slowly working our way through all of these warehouses. Of course, since they're junk warehouses, they will start collecting junk, but we are processing the sand. It's just taking quite some time. I did spend some time upgrading our copper setup with better modules and better machines. So now this thing can technically put out, well, 187 coils a second if it had the copper, because we just need an obnoxious amount of copper cable for this. Every single tick of this requires 400 wire coils, which is an immense amount of cable. So yeah, this thing is cranking out basically 2 whole green belts of cable a second. That's about as much as we can get, because it's working pretty hard on just this. Okay, we've made it to stage 6. It's really starting to look like a silo now, but here we go. Things were difficult before, now they are extremely difficult. Wow, we got down to 19% on our accumulator charge. That seems really low. Well, that's probably because uranium ran out in all of our reactors. So now that we've hit 15%, Old Faithful, our plutonium setup, is now running. And since running this is actually going to generate more curium, then that means we essentially need more thorium now. Because if we let it run like this, we're just going to gain curium again. So if we want to completely close loop our setup, we need to do more thorium stuff. And luckily, this final stage uses the refined concrete, which doesn't go into these buildings nearly as much. Okay, we need to make another setup, basically the same as this one, and we essentially need to copy it. But how to do that? The water pipes don't go up there, but there's not enough room for reactors here, so we probably need to do this and just fix the water pipes. So we plop it in. Looks good. It takes a second, but they're in there now. They'll probably take a moment to be properly set up in the sense of getting all their required fuels, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to work. And it's okay if we waste a little bit of fuel while it's getting fired up. Now, as far as what to do about these pipes, really only uses about 1 pipe's worth of water, and it has many pipes. So we probably can do something similar to what we did with science, and we can just do a pipe snake to get the water in there, just as long as we don't mix and match these. It's a little annoying doing it in this way, but okay. The water's finally in there. Of course, many thorium fuel cells are going to be delivered. Well, our new science snake is complete for a massive 12.6 gigawatts for 858 labs. Wow, no wonder we ran out of power. We're at 22 gigawatts right now, and only 3.3 of that is actually going into the accumulators. Maybe we will need deuterium power after all, and that's using up all the science packs we currently have. Well, there it is. The first and easiest step into the faster than light research. That was 200,000 red science packs. Let's just get the rest of this updated real quick. There we go. And, well, got nothing better to do than the second one. That was 200,000 science packs, and now this one is going to be 800,000 science packs. But it's going to require a lot less lab, so we're probably going to save power in that sense. Of course, if we want that to go even faster, we're going to need to produce even more of the science packs. Looks like we're almost done with the first silo here. Finally get to see it complete. 23.7 gigawatts. I feel like that's a new record again. It keeps going up too. Definitely stresses the accumulators, having all of these running, but they don't overheat. But nonetheless, the factory really needs more accumulators, so robots are beginning more expansion by placing landfill down, because this is 1.9 terajoules of power. And like, look how quickly it's actually getting filled up. Like, that's nuts. This is clearly not enough accumulator for a factory with this kind of power output. It actually needs to be more, a lot more. I don't know how, but I think we need to double the amount of accumulators we have. We can certainly keep taking up the ocean. And there's a Biter Island over here. Maybe we can try out our new power armor and clear that island out. But there's a lot of space here to continue to expand into the ocean, so we might as well. And while I was talking, look at that. We now have a completed rocket silo that is waiting for its equipment. But we should probably finish all of the other silos first, because there are going to be belts and stuff going through here. But now that it's done, we don't need any supporting components anymore. Be very careful not to pick up the silo itself, because I'm pretty sure we won't get it back. And we've been making lots of requests for circuit boards. So setups were upgraded yet again to max tier everything, and It's really not dense at all. Clearly you can see a limitation of our technology when we first built this about how far apart everything is. But it's cranking it out. It's almost a green belt, so that's about the most we could really expect. So our accumulators are now at 100%. These things are continuing to run, but you can see the temperature doesn't quite get to 1250. It gets mighty close. It doesn't hit it, which means no wasted power. We're right on the razor's edge of the bare minimum amount of accumulators for this much power. It's so nice to finally see our rocket silo. That took a lot of work to build that, but I think that's a cool mod, the rocket silo construction mod. That's neat. It requires that you scale up your factory. It fits well with things like Science Cost Tweaker and Space Extension that make the end game a lot bigger. Like, the factory did not need to be this big for a normal playthrough, even a normal Angel Bob's playthrough. But it was scaled up to this size specifically because I knew at the end game we would have huge resource requirements, and that would really be terrible to get to the point of, say, building rockets and then finding out our factory's a tenth of the size that it needs to be. That's a throw the computer out the window and play a different game scenario after spending hundreds of hours on something. So that's why I scaled it this big, is because I was terribly worried about that. But luckily, although it was a grind to get these built, you know, it worked. It happened. And now that we have the necessary infrastructure on the side here, that if we decide to build more of them, robots will automatically handle that. We'll just need to probably space them out a little bit more and have the exact assortment of requester chests around there, so it'll just start automatically. But we still gotta let that complete. There's a lot more work that's involved. That was just the closest one, so it got completed the soonest. Now the next thing we probably want to work on is expanding our red and green science, because now that these science researches are taking 2 of each pack, we are no longer using all of these science labs. In fact, we're probably only using about a third of them. And you know, it's moving along. We're at 8%. The problem is each one of these gets bigger and bigger. Actually, most of these, it looks like it goes to 400 and then 600, and then it kind of holds at 600. And then these last two are 2 million easy mode and 2 million hard mode. So we definitely need to scale up, and we're probably going to want to calculate exactly how we're going to do that. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.